Hey folks, Kilt-Man here. Kilt-Man at your services. How are you all? I hope you're all doing very, very well. We've got some good news. Yes, Gory George Romero is back from the grave. The godfather of gore, the zeitgeist of zombies. He's back for one final undead outing. Okay, he hasn't quite clawed his way back from the grave. Sadly, Gory George died in 2017 after a brief but very aggressive battle with cancer. And he had a lot of ideas for more movies, one of which being a finale to his phenomenal zombie undead cycle of movies. Commencing, of course, with Night of the Living Dead, and then Dawn of the Dead, then Day of the Dead, and then Land of the Dead, and then Diary of the Dead, and then Survival of the Dead. A lot of the and some of the later of those were a bit like, ugh. They weren't really worth their gristle. Now, this film was a story treatment which he had written already before he died. It had been mooted about for a few years prior to this, but his late wife, what's her name, Suzanne Romero, and another company have got involved and right, the Romero estate is going to put this final movie out, and it's called Twilight of the Dead. Now, I'm going to read you the all the sort of press stuff that came out via Hollywood Reporter and bloodydisgusting.com, which came out a few days ago, and I was aware of it, but I thought, let's just see how this actually pans out, because you get a lot of this sort of talk, and it's all hyperbole and stuff, but I do believe that this will happen. It's been greenlit, there's funding, it's meant to start this year, apparently. Well, we'll talk about this, but a great director has been attached to it. Brad Anderson did the phenomenally successful cult indie movie Session 9. Session 9 was actually filmed in an old asylum, a genuine old asylum, which was genuinely haunted. And it was about a team of workers go in there to clear it out of asbestos and encounter spookiness. And I reviewed the film in the past, not on the channel, but for other media. And I thought, this guy's great. And then he did a masterpiece, The Machinist, with Christian Bale, which was, and this is the one where Bale shrank down to nothing. He was a spindly, slender man, but it was all about he couldn't sleep. What was going on? Who was harassing and haunting him? What was it all about? It was a pure Hitchcockian homage. And Bale went from that to bulking up straight away to play Batman in Batman Begins. But The Machinist is a phenomenal movie. I've used that word several times in this video already. Note to self, stop saying phenomenal. But Brad Anderson is a great director. He did one called Blood as well, which wasn't quite so good, but Blood went so good. But The Machinist and Session 9 shows this is a director who's got a lot of sort of understanding of suspense and tension and character building and mise-en-scene. And that doesn't directly sort of translate to a big zombie gore-a-thon in many ways. But he's a guy that's got talents. And you don't want just some hack doing it, forgive the pun on zombies. You don't want no hack director doing it. We've had all this before. We want a guy that can actually command presence, command a narrative, a story, and blend it all together with great performances. And he has admitted it will be gory. Of course it's going to be gory. It's got to be. It's George's swan song. Now, the weird thing I find about this is that the title Twilight of the Dead, right, many moons ago in the 80s, when George was completing Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and then Day of the Dead, right at that point, 1984-85 for Day of the Dead, he was talking about maybe, it was going to be just a trilogy, obviously, that's what he always wanted to do, but little did he know it was going to go on and on and on. It would bleed further on. And he thought, well, no, there's still legs in this zombie. It's still going to get up and walk. And because there literally is no more room in hell, so it's got nowhere else to go, and it's hungry. So I remember way back then, and it might even be in this book here, the classic book, The Zombies That Ate Pittsburgh, which chronicles all the first sort of 3 zombie movies, Night, Dawn and Day, and a few other Romero projects as well. But and I've got other books as well. But I remember interviews with George at the time where he actually mentioned the title Twilight of the Dead. I've done my trilogy, but they're successful and people want more. I've got an idea for another one, tentatively called Twilight of the Dead. And I know like some people are kind of like, oh, you should call it Dusk of the Dead. You've had night, dawn, day, dusk, kind of works. But Twilight, I think, fits just as well. Tea time with the dead, you know. Just before supper time with the dead. Draw the curtains and turn off all the appliances of the dead. But he mentioned it then. And what they're going to say now, when I read out the full press disclosure and what Brad Anderson has said about it, they're kind of making out that this idea only came about after Land of the Dead, which was kind of like, I've got a feeling that Land of the Dead is what Twilight of the Dead was meant to have been. I've got a lot of stuff on this and I haven't found the time to go and find it all out and do all my research, but it's what I remember. And Land of the Dead was kind of a nice capper to what we'd had. George would go on to do Diary of the Dead, suddenly leaping on the bandwagon of found footage movies, and it didn't go down well at all. Its low budget really showed, and a lot of fans didn't like it. A lot of people did. I'll be honest with you, I despise found footage movies, apart from Cannibal Holocaust, which I think is phenomenal. Oh, I've done it again. Oh, where was that note to myself? Oh, I wrote it in invisible ink. Oh, stupid fool. But Cannibal Holocaust, Ruggero Deodato's absolute masterpiece of the macabre, is a great film, as well as being pushing the boundaries of guts and gore, and it actually is a good, clever movie. And it's the founder of found footage. But then you got all like loads of these found footage movies coming out, and George leapt on the bandwagon, thinking I can give my sort of satirical overview of consumerism and society at the moment, with its new devotion to, you know, cameras and filming everything that happens before your eyes, even to the expense of your own life. And yeah, he leapt on that. Now, the last time I watched that movie, I thought, you know what, that's not as bad as people make out, and it's not as bad as even I first thought it was. Do I return to it? No, I don't. I've seen it enough. I don't really care to see it again. But it's not as bad as its legacy seems to bestow upon it. And then he did Survival of the Dead. Oh. Which again, the first, I knew bad things going into it, but I'm a devoted fan of Romero's zombie movies and Romero himself. And I thought, oh no, I'm going to give this the time of day. And it had moments. But it was ultra indie, low budget, and just a last dying gasp. It was pointless. So, in the background to all these of Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, Survival of the Dead, this Twilight of the Dead was clearly still, you know, going through his brain. And how am I going to get this one done? Because I've put ideas I had from my big finale, which would be the 4th movie. So it'd be what is it? A trilogy, a quadrilogy. It would be the 4th telling to round it all off. But then, of course, he went off and made these other bloody movies as well. But he just drip-fed ideas from Twilight of the Dead into those movies. So, let's flash forward now. And before he dies, he has realised, look, there was a vision there which I haven't actually seen to fruition. So let's get this done. So he wrote a story treatment for Twilight of the Dead. And that's all that exists. And it's been pushed around from studio to studio, and various people have been attached to it. It's been tried, and no one's really come up with the readies for it until now. And now it's going ahead. So I will read you this stuff. First of all, I'll have a little swig of the old whiskeroo. Cheers, y'all. Cheers, George. George will never die. So, okay, now I'm reading from Bloody Disgusting, but they are going to quote from the Hollywood Reporter. I'm playing the soundtrack to Land of the Dead. I play a lot of zombie music on the channel, as you know, especially when I'm talking about Gory George and Dawn of the Dead. I play a lot of Dawn of the Dead stuff and Day of the Dead. But this is actually Land of the Dead, and it's quite an effective soundtrack. I'm quite a fan of Land of the Dead. We'll probably talk more about that in a bit. But anyway, here's what it says. Before he passed away in 2017, horror master George A. Romero had been developing one final zombie movie titled Twilight of the Dead, which has shown brief signs of life here and there over the years. The film is finally coming to life, the Hollywood Reporter let us know this morning. This would be several days ago. With Brad Anderson, Session 9, Machinist and Blood on board to direct. Shooting is expected to start later this year. I was going to say, shooting them in the head is the only way of dealing with these. The Hollywood Reporter notes in their exclusive report. George Romero's 1968 classic Night of the Living Dead may have been the first real horror movie I ever saw, and its shock value, its keen social relevance, and even the means by which it was made were all hugely inspirational to me, says Brad Anderson. This too, the one he's going to make, Twilight of the Dead, this too is a zombie movie in which limbs fly and heads roll, but one that is also about social transformation, one that asks the question, what is it to be human? Is it also a horror movie with heart? Sorry, it is also a horror movie with heart, and dare I say it, hope. I'm going to stop right there because Night of the Living Dead showed no hope, and no, what it meant to be human was pretty bad. Poor Ben gets shot at the end. He tries his best to save everybody, fights against the people on the inside, and saves himself only to be shot by the human posse who are rounding up the zombies. It's a bleak, nihilistic ending, one of the greatest in cinema, the most important. In Dawn of the Dead, we are offered hope and salvation. On the brink of annihilation, of extinction, the last remnants of mankind hole up somewhere, but they encounter humans are still the worst enemy despite the zombie apocalypse. But our four protagonists band together, and after some initial hostilities and friction, become a devoted family. They lose members, and in the end, two of them escape to a fragile future. Fran is pregnant. Peter was going to commit suicide, but in the end, no, I can't leave her. And I'm a battler, I'm a warrior. So off he goes at the end of Dawn of the Dead, onto the helicopter, and off they fly into the dawn of the dead. And the zombies have reclaimed the shopping mall. And she's pregnant, so there's a glimmer of hope there. Then you get Day of the Dead. They're never the same characters moved from any of these movies. Plenty of the same dilemmas though. There's always like an enclave, a farmhouse, a shopping mall, in this case an underground bunker, a silo, and then we'll go on to the movies later. But there's always somewhere where, you know, you've got sanctuary, they're safe for a while, but internal frictions or outside human problems will get in the way, and then through the cracks the zombies will pour in, and then chaos ensues, and the zombies will win over these places every single time. But a few survivors will get away. So in Day of the Dead, you get Laurie Cardale and I always forget the other guy's names. McDermott, who's the hard whiskey drinking radio operator, and you've got Terry, whatever his bloody name is, who's the Caribbean Rasta helicopter pilots, and they fly off, leaving everyone else to be ripped to shreds and torn apart. And this guy to get his final revenge on Captain Rhodes. and they fly off to a tropical island somewhere, and she's pregnant, and we leave them with an ideal of hope on this little island. They could keep themselves safe from zombie invasion, but as I just said, doesn't matter where you are, the zombies will get there, and usually because humans get in the way and cause some issues and bring them with them, or open the doors, or do whatever. Then you got Land of the Dead, and of course, like, you've got Dead. The best title for this movie was Dead Reckoning, which is the great big truck that they drive, the big reinforced truck with it fires off all the flares to distract the zombies, who then in a great moment, it's a wonderful moment, they're kind of like, yeah, oh, we've seen these about 10 times before so far in this movie. Flares have burnt out, and the zombie heads turn down and like look back at the truck, and they go like, oh shit. They get fucking surrounded. But the truck was called Dead Reckoning, and the film was going to be called Dead Reckoning, which I thought was a great title. But then it became the more generic Land of the Dead to fit in with all the of the dead stuff. And again, you have a city there, which is walled in and secure. They've got people with jobs, it's great, it's hunky-dory. You wouldn't know there was a zombie apocalypse, but it's a hierarchy in this, a class system, and it inevitably goes completely awry. People get set up, betrayed, and the zombies get in there. Big Daddy leads the zombie onslaught, and they get in, and all hell breaks loose. And it's brilliant, brilliant. So another paradise gets broken into and destroyed. And then you get Diary of the Dead. And they end up in this country mansion sort of place, which again, it gets overdone. But it's on a much smaller scale, harking back to Night of the Living Dead, obviously. And all done with, like, you know, camcorders and stuff like. And then you get Survival of the Dead, which, again, people are trying to get out to islands, and you've got like, but you've got warring factions, and again, you are going back to a farmstead, a ranch, and you've got zombies on horses as well, and it just kind of peters out completely. It's a real whimper of a movie. So, well, what was I saying about that? What is it to be human? Romero's films have always explored that. It is also a horror movie, this is the new one, with heart and, dare I say it, hope. Well, you've seen that already. Dawn, day, and the way that Land of the Dead ends as well. You've got survivors going off to Canada, and you've got Big Daddy leading the zombies, and now you're feeling more sympathy for the zombies. They've got a bloody good reason to exist, and they've got a charismatic yet dead leader. So, you know, it's a clever way to end it, and it could have ended there. And then it goes on with, as I say, Diary and Survival, which are just sort of offshoots. So what this movie is, it's going to ignore, you know, like, oh, why am I bringing this crap up again? David Gordon Green and Blumhouse and their Halloween trilogy completely ignored everything after the original 1978 Halloween, and did their films are all direct, although 40 years apart, sequels to Halloween 1978. And you all know my feelings on these. But what they're doing here, and this kind of seems a bit more wise, I suppose, because they're all different characters anyway, so you're not bringing any legacy characters back, I hope. Although I'd love to see Ken Faree as Peter, and Galen Ross as Fran would be great to be in there. You know, that would be awesome. But that's just fan base. That's fan service. If done correctly, it can work. But how many times have we seen it being completely wretched? And done it again. David Gordon Green, you've cursed me with your Exorcist new forthcoming trilogy. You've brought Ellen Burstyn back in to play Chris McNeil. You've also brought Linda Blair back in to play Reagan. Pure linking it back to the legacy. Now, before I go any further, I want to say this right now about the Exorcist. Believer, fucking garbage. Second trailer came out, and it's better put together, but it's not working for me. I still think this film looks absolutely rank. And Ellen Burstyn, I'm losing respect for you minute by minute because of this. You see more of her in the second trailer, and I'm not agreeing with her being in this at all. Do you know why she's in it? The money. The money to pay for her acting academy. Oh, that's fine, of course, you know. Take Blumhouse for a ride and get their money. She refused it. She refused every sequel to The Exorcist until this time. And she refused these guys numerous times. And then they upped the money. No, it still wasn't enough. They doubled it. They actually doubled the initial offer. So it's really good paycheck. And then she thought, I can actually use this money to help my film academy, my training system, my tutelage. So she took it for those reasons. Not because it was great art. She says, like, oh, but I enjoyed making the movie, and I think it's a good film. It looks utter shit. But so what I'm saying is, like, although I'd love to see Ken Faree and Galen Ross, I'd love to see David Emge back as well. That maybe that bullet went through his head at the end of Dawn of the Dead. Actually missed his brain by several feet, because Flyboy is a bit of a dickhead as well. So maybe his brain's lower down. I'd love to see him come back. And of course, Scott H. Reiniger, who's over there. Roger. Roger Dodger. We never saw him get killed. We heard the gunshot and we saw the burial, so he's gone. But it'd be great to see these guys come back, like, because we love them. But I do agree that Romero's idea was always a different set of characters from movie to movie, going through this apocalypse, and how they all individually or combined as an ensemble will deal with it. And this appears to be taking that standpoint. So, I haven't read much of this at all, have I? And there's loads as well to read. And now my mouse has frozen. Right, no. The George A. Romero estate is teaming up with LA-based financier producer Roundtable on Twilight of the Dead, being positioned as the final installment in Romero's Dead franchise. The original treatment for the planned project was penned by Romero himself, but Joan Netta, Robert Lucas and Paolo Zalati tackled the actual screenplay. So, Romero wrote a treatment. These guys have taken that treatment and done the writing of the screenplay. Romero followed seminal zombie film Night of the Living Dead with Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, Survival of the Dead. The upcoming Twilight of the Dead takes the zombie terror to a fresh location, a tropical island. Day of the Dead ended on a tropical island. Twilight is said to delve into the dark nature of humanity from the perspective of the last humans on Earth who are caught between factions of the undead. Well, Day of the Dead and Dawn and then Land certainly all dealt with that massively. So more of the same. But really, I don't see how you could go any different with it, you know. Producers include Suzanne Romero, that's his wife, John Baldecchi, Sarah Donnelly, Paolo Zalati, and Ardvello Entertainment's Stephanie Caleb, with executive producers set as Dominic Iano, Alex Dundas, Jason Resnick, Chris Rowe, and Luis Riefkohl. I know them all so well. Suzanne Romero said in a statement, "I'm delighted to be joining forces with Roundtable to bring the eerie evolution of Romero's universe to the screen. Roundtable impressed me with their long-term and deep love of George's work. I believe they have the vision to produce the best version of this movie that honours the Romero legacy. I can't wait to start filming." Well, you know, that's his wife. She loves him, loves the legacy. Obviously still wants to make some moolah. And but she would say that, wouldn't she? She's not going to say, oh, this is going to be shit. You know, they should leave it alone. George had the best idea, and without George behind the camera and calling the shots, it ain't going to work. She's not going to say that, is she? You know? Roundtable's head of scripted. But is that a fucking department? Head of scripted. John Baldecchi adds, "We're thrilled to be working alongside Suzanne." He would say that because they've given the Romero estate's given them the rights. "Paolo and Stephanie to bring the final installment of this epic series. It is the perfect ending to one of the greatest horror legacies of all time." It is. with a powerful and timely message about how humanity is the cause of its own destruction over and over and over again. Now, I'll stop again because that has been told in Romero's movies and pretty much every zombie movie, from the Walking Dead TV shows and comic books and all the other versions of the apocalypse. Mankind, it has been proven to be the cause of its own destruction over and over and over again. So to say that you can't make out this is going to be different and unique, how you treat it could be different, and I hope so, but that's not new. That's been the exact theme of Romero's movies right from 1968 with Night of the Living Dead. Hang on, I thought there was more to this. Well, it would appear I've read it all. No, there is more. Sure there's more. Let me just see if I can find the bloody thing. Oops. Sorry, folks. The system's really slowed down on this, so I'm a slave to like really drag sort of slow time. Where is it? Sorry, there was a version of this, another addendum to it, saying like why you should be excited, but it's basically just Brad Anderson saying, look, I'm gonna do it justice. There's gonna be gore, but I'm gonna tell a great story. It's gonna honour George's legacy, all the stuff you expect to see. Now you heard there, shooting is expected to start this year. This year being 2023. We are now September the 12th, 2023. We are still in the midst of a huge record-breaking writer's strike and actors strike. The actors came out, in allegiance with the writers. That's ongoing. I know Drew Barrymore is we're going to put my show back together, her talk show thing, because, we'll write it ourselves. We don't need writers. A fucking talk show. And I know that they do use writers, obviously, especially American bloody talk shows. But why do you need a writer to write a talk show? You present it and you bring someone on and you talk to them. You don't have someone else writing your questions down and putting your quips and one-liners and retorts and comebacks. That's bullshit. What I'm doing right now is a talk show, albeit I'm on my own. I'm showing you me talking. No one's fucking written this. No one's written this shit. So Drew Barrymore to say to break the picket line. I couldn't think of what the word was then. See, no one's written this for me, quite clearly. They wouldn't have written the word phenomenal down 10 times, would they? But she broke the picket line to go and redo her show, get it back, in broadcast, but without writers. We'll write it ourselves. But as we're saying, for a talk show, you don't need writers, do you? It's only an American thing to have writers for a talk show. It kind of beggars belief, to be honest. But this strike is nowhere near ending. You've got all the studios are saying we're kind of coming to a resolution. We've put together a great package, and they should agree to it. But the unions of the writers and the actors who've joined in are like, nah, that's not going to work. It might be you're offering a little bit more, but it's still not what we're worth. And we've got people living in cars. Their entire families live in cars. They're depending on the writer for TV shows to bring in the moolah. But they can't afford to live in a house or apartment or flat or whatever. They live in their car. An entire family. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? It does sound ridiculous, but apparently it's true. So they expect to get this done and start shooting in 2023 amid a writers and actors strike and get it released in 2024. Well, good luck with that. Now, I think there is a way that this can actually happen because we've already heard it's a story treatment by Romero. So the entire idea is laid out there. The treatment it won't be dialogue, it won't be scene by scene, but it'll have the entire gist, all the characters there, your opening, how it's going to progress, and how it's going to end. It's a treatment. And into that, these other guys whose names I read out before, they've all written the screenplay. So it's been done already. The screenplay exists. It's going to be an independent movie. Brad Anderson does low-budget independent movies. That's what inspired him. George Romero's movies inspired him by their satirical slants on, society, its observation about civilization, the gore, the inventiveness on a low budget, and just that just sheer, verve to do something off the cuff like that, and just ignore, big studios, do your own thing. That's what inspired him to make movies, and cut his best to were like that, low budget and very inspired, very what's the word I'm looking for? Grandstanding, big ideas, very ambitious and brilliantly directed and brilliantly acted. So they can get this movie off the ground with next to nothing really. It's set on a tropical island. Well, that's easy. You can film it on the beach down here. There's palm trees in several of the houses in our neighbourhood. Palm trees, and this is the fucking Wirral, in northwest of England. Cheers, y'all. So I don't doubt that you the script is done, and you've got a location set, but you've got an actor's strike as well. So where are you going to get them from? But again, what Romero did, who did he use? Family and friends and acquaintances and people from the neighbourhood. That's who were in Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. People from theatre. Brad Anderson could go right back to basics and do the exact same thing. I think that will work. I hope that's what he does. I don't really want to see a name, in the cast list. The best Romero movies had no one that you knew. Okay, he may have used them in other movies. Like you saw Tom Savini's name there. Wow. Now they haven't mentioned that. Are they going to use CG? Are they going to use practical effects? I would say that they're going to use practical effects, and I think the tropical island setting and the sort of intimate viewpoint of humanity on the brink and what it means to be human. I don't think this will be grand scale at all. I think it'll be quite a small, intimate story with only if you're going to do it properly, it's in Romero's honour. Just a small group banded together, some fractionalization within that group. Maybe some outsiders do come in, but whatever breaks in there brings the zombie onslaught as well. It's only going to end in the same sort of way, isn't it? The zombies on the rampage and people fighting for their lives. But I don't want big names in there. I know Christian Bale and the great Michael Ironside were actually in The Machinist. And oh my God, what a film that is. Phenomenal. If he keeps that kind of spooky, what's really happening atmosphere, which is in session 9 as well, and converts that to a zombie movie in an isolated location with characters that you might not be able to trust that well, or certain things happen where you don't trust them anymore. Think The Thing as well. Paranoia sets in, and then you get the external aggression of the zombies, and if you're stuck on an island, you've got nowhere to go. If your means of transportation are gone, that's it boys, So with this in mind, I'm gonna go. I've been playing Land of the Dead by Reinhold Heil and Johnny, what's his name? Oh, it's not telling me. Johnny Klimek, and it's a good score, but as good as it is, screw that. We're gonna go back to Day of the Dead. I love the Dawn of the Dead score, of course, as you guys know. I play it a lot. I played it recently as well, but John Harrison's score for Day of the Dead is still the one that it's the best, most accomplished score, because it's a score written for the movie and it's all for the movie. It isn't library tracks thrown in there and then a prog rock group adding their bits to it as well. So this movie's going to ignore Diary of the Dead and Twilight of the Dead. So it will take place after Land of the Dead. But as I said right at the start of this, when Romero first mentioned this would have been the fourth and final episode. Night, dawn, day, twilight. That was how it's going to work. And then it just reconfigured itself and became Land of the Dead. And see what I've done here? I've done all this stuff, a lot of my Romero Dead stuff has been out there, the scene setting. Now, I've got several versions of Land of the Dead, American versions on DVD, British version on DVD, and the Blu-ray, and American and British. I couldn't find any of them. Now, there's a spook in this house, which always takes things which I fucking need. And I've turned the mansion upside down. I can't find any copy of Land of the Dead. Not one. I've got the soundtrack is sitting there somewhere, but I can't find any actual movie copy of it, which is a real pisser because I want to watch it now. Also, our good friend Astrodyne, a traveller in time, Astrodyne, great mate and Super Channel contributor, sent me the fabulous British quad poster for Dawn of the Dead, which in the UK, where I am, it was called Zombies! Dawn of the Dead. Zombies! Dawn of the Dead. And that poster is immensely collectible, hugely cool, and huge. And I unboxed it live on camera, and it's been on several walls in the mansion. It's moved around a bit. Then it comes down and the thing is going in place, and then, it finds a new location. I took it down a while ago, and I wanted it in the background. Somewhere up there, I would have had it. It's fucking disappeared. Land of the Dead and the quad poster have gone. It's poor Taso Stavrakis getting his head ripped off. They put their fingers into his eye sockets like a bowling ball and dragged his head off as his body's writhing around. But John Harrison's score is just beautifully synth and dead rhythmic with a calypso sort of slant to it because it's Florida and it's tropical and all that, and Caribbean. So, folks, let's think about this now. We're gonna get the next best thing to a new Romero movie. It's going to be taken from his entire story for this final installment, ignoring Diary and Survival, which are offshoots anyway. It doesn't really matter about them. The whole thing about the zombie apocalypse, you can have little stories here, there, and everywhere. You could have, how the US Marines dealt with it, and then got overrun. You could tell that story. The whole thing about zombie apocalypse, this way got The Walking Dead with so many different factions and different things taking place, can always go on. But this is meant to jettison Diary and Survival and be a follow-on and fit together with Night, Dawn, Day, Land, Twilight. You can see how Land doesn't fit in with that now, can't you? So I'm thinking, right back to what I first said, which is not what they've said. This is going to follow on from Land. Is it though? Is it? I doubt it. I think we can subtract Land as well. Night, dawn, day, twilight. I mean, come on. That's exactly how it's meant to be. That's the pattern. And that's what Gory George wanted to begin with. That's what he said. I remember all this way back in the day. That's the title. Another after Day. There's another one that I'm thinking of doing. Tentatively titled Twilight. That was back then. So it's all well and good these guys saying, yeah, this was something he wrote before he died. No, he had the idea way before, and Land kind of took over. So. I know I was annoyed about saying the word phenomenal but so many times, but the amount of the dead that I've said. This is the end of Steel. Come on, bub. Come on, you puss-brain bag of shit. Come Gary Clark as Steele. For a long time, I always put Day of the Dead behind Dawn. But you know, I don't know what it is. I love Dawn. I haven't got to say this. I love Dawn. It's a masterpiece. But it's not so much a horror film. It's an action movie. It's a satire. It's many things. Day is an action movie, a satire, but it doesn't forget that it's a horror movie as well, and it's definitely more horrific than the first two movies, I think. And over the years, I've grown to love it more and more and more. Even though it's only a pale shadow of what Romero first wrote. There was so much. There was the Red Army faction of zombies. You had trained zombies to be an army. It was really super ambitious. Whether this forthcoming movie is going to reflect on that, don't know. Tropical Island, you could do it. You could have stockades of zombies there, which are being trained to be weaponized. And Walking Dead's done all this. Walking Dead has had all of this sort of stuff as well. So it wouldn't be especially unique now. Can you be unique with a zombie movie in this day and age? No. President Zombie? You fucking got one in America. Biden fucking died decades ago. And he's still fucking... this great country of... brains. Oh, fuck off, you know. So, I hope for practical effects. Don't mind big sweeping CG stuff. Just don't do it Peter Jackson style, which is so overtly fake. Love Peter Jackson, you guys know that. But those swooping, too fast, Middle-earthian, flyovers of these vast CG armies, that became annoying. But you can do this. You can do drone shots of siege hordes of zombies. What was that one with Dave Bautista set in Vegas, which came out a couple of years ago? Which I forgot what it was called. Not too bad actually, and they're walled into Vegas as a zombie. That's a zombie civilization, and there were different types of zombies. Now I would have thought, because in Romero's movies, the time's gone on. The zombies are more dishevelled. They're more like, decomposed. I love this. This is up the ladder, trying to get out the silo. Come on, Johnny. You're gonna fly us to the promised land. Zombie in the tropical chef. His head blown up. Oh, it's great, isn't it? It's great. So yeah, practical effects we want for the majority of the gore. And he said, we're going to have limbs lopping and heads flying. He said that. That's a quote. If this comes out and it's fucking PG-13, that ain't going to happen. God, can you imagine? George would come back from the grave, clawing his way out. Like in Creepshow. On Father's Day, he'd come out like... Brad Anderson had the big fucking crucifix, big tombstone dropped on his head, Folks, I love Romero's movies. Martin is immensely great fun. Jack's Wife, Season the Witch, is a really twisted domestic drama, but really, really clever. The Dark Harp is amazing. Oh God, Monkey Shines. I don't know about Monkey Shines. Great cast, great idea. Just massively lacking in something. If they put Savini's gore effects back into it, it'd be better. The Crazies is phenomenal. Oh no, I've done it again. What's happening with this fucking word today? The Crazies is great, and it's a sort of pseudo zombie movie anyway. What's it called? Trixie. It's Project Trixie. This chemical, and all the rednecks are going crazy, and they send in the hazmat suited fucking army with a hardline right-wing tactics. You know, shoot them, shoot the bastards. But you got the knitting needle in the eye and all that. Like, oh, it's great. It's phenomenal. Oh no! I've definitely been cursed today. Someone's brainwashed me to put that word into every other sentence. The Crazies got remade, and that's actually pretty good. It's pretty damn good. It takes another slant on it. It's a little bit more, obviously it's more slick and a bit more action-packed, but it works. I love both crazy stories, interpretations. But yeah, practical effects, Romero's use of location and real locations and real natural people that you don't recognise. You put a big name in this, and it will ultimately, it'll work against it. So, Brad, please come up with the goods. I really hope you get this movie made in the timescale that you've said. Like, start shooting this year for release next year. Despite all the strikeage taking place, I hope and pray that that's what happens, and it comes to light, the light of the dead. In my case, it'd be the dog walk of the dead, because the husky's over there and she wants to go out. So, folks, I have been always shall be Kilt-Man. Please, in the meantime, and it's ever like dead-headed in between time, please keep it kilted, keep it Celtic, and keep it phenomenal. And I will see you all later. And you need lead zombies. Bub became a lead zombie. You had the ones in Dawn with the guns and all that, like, and the nurse, all that sort of stuff. Like Night of the Living Dead, you had Barbara's brother, Johnny. Was it Johnny? God, I've forgotten now. Day of the Dead, you had the clown, and you had the zombies who were in the front and centre every time in the mob shots and all that, like. And again, Big Daddy in Land of the Dead. So you want that. You want all these little references that you harken back to what Romero did. You're not ripping it off. You're paying respect, and that's what he would have done. So we're doing it that way. You can make this work, Brad. I'm actually quite really pleased. I'm quite enthusiastic about the naming of Brad Anderson as being the director of this. He could bring something to this on the humanity side, the suspense side, the eeriness, and then hopefully hit us with the gristle and the gore and the grue and the grand guignol. Aye, the grand guignol. That's a fabulous term, that. No one ever uses that these days. I used to use it in reviews all the time, because when I was a kid reading like these big horror tomes, these great big encyclopedias of movies that when you're like 6 or 7 years old, you hadn't seen them yet. Now I've seen them all, like, but you track them all down. But grand guignol was always the phraseology, meaning literally, big effect, big nastiness, big ghoulishness, big blood, big spectacle, and of the macabre. But grand guignol, it's beautiful. I think you should go to a restaurant and how would say like his spaghetti? Grand guignol. Oh, brains, spaghetti brains, not bolognese. Oh yeah, let's listen to this. The main theme for Day of the Dead. Main title. This is where, after Sarah's dream at the start, where all the hands come through and she wakes up in the helicopter, and they're flying out to find other survivors, and it's the Everglades, you know, and it's all overgrown, and they've got the bullhorn going, is anybody there? Anybody alive? We can fly you out, you know. We've got food, we've got safety, we can get to safety, but we're stuck with a bunch of fucking maverick guys, army guys with M16s and a really bad attitude. Best stay where you are. And then you got like, forget it, Billy Boy, you know, you can hear it even above the engines, because you can hear the moaning of the dead, because the bullhorn's woken all the dead up, like, and it'll turn here. Did I end this video about 5 minutes ago? I did, didn't I? But we're still here. Like George is still here. Listen now. Oh, it's great, isn't it? You start seeing shadows on the sidewalk. You've got like an alligator coming out of the shop doorway. And like, you got like the dead are like just sitting there with bugs and spiders all over them. But they can hear this. Dinner time. That's that mournful, like sort of like pseudo-synthesized horn call, like the dinner bell. Bong. And you get Dr. Tongue, the shadow shambling, newspaper, the dead walk, and his entire lower jaw's gone, and his tongue's going. Isn't it great? It's funny how we have an apocalyptic vision of the dead themselves, our loved ones, coming back to destroy us. Where's that come from? Egyptian stuff, Greek stuff, Rome. Every civilization has this belief about the dead. We have our beliefs about rituals to put people in the ground, and I've talked about this a lot as well, and keep them in the ground, especially if they were bastards in life. Make sure they stay in the fucking ground, don't come back to haunt us as vampires, werewolves, or ghouls, zombies. But every culture's got this, every single culture, because we all die. It's dead simple. It's dead simple. It's hardly rocket science that we have such a phobia and belief about what happens after we die. And what if the dead came back? The dead could come back and be totally fucking great. Well, I'm back. Hey, I'm back. Don't want to die. It's great. You come back and like, oh, I can eat and watch movies. Look, I'm breathing again. It's great, you know. They don't have to come back and eat people, do they? Do they? Is that some kind of law? Romero wrote the book on zombies. He's the one that made them flesh-eating bastards, you know. Cheers, George. Your legacy will live forever. Your legacy will actually, here's the irony, it'll never be buried. It'll never come back from the grave because it's immortal anyway. His stories about zombies, people coming back from the grave to feast on the living, his story, his idea will never itself die. It'll always be in existence, living and breathing, and readapted for every new generation, every new bit of technology, every new idea, every new societal change. It'll apply itself. It's fantastic, isn't it? My God. I ended, what was it, about 15 minutes ago? Folks, I'm happy about this. So I'm going to sign off now, for definite. But please comment below, let me know what you think about another Romero-style zombie movie coming out. But not by Romero, although it will have his imagination and his style and his lifeblood pumped into it. Brad, let's hope you get this right. And I hope it works out in the timescale that you say. Get it filmed this year, or at least started this year. completed next year, and then with the release maybe in the fall of 2024. Tropical island, spooky setting, evocative of course, zombie flesh eaters, which has the scariest zombies ever put on screen, the most convincing zombies, and yet the most terrifying as well. He took what Romero did, and of course, you guys know, I have covered Fulci's zombie flesh eaters and all the other Fulci undead movies, The Beyond, City of the Living Dead, and House by the Cemetery. I've reviewed them all, but I've done a lot more on zombie flesh eaters because that is phenomenal. Oh no! Gotta shoot them in the brain. I swear to God. I hate that word, phenomenal. I will try never to use it again. Never! Never! But it's going to take a phenomenal effort on my part.